Going to do the firmware upgrade on the Celestron Deluxe HD. Go to mount, and I've also got the StarSense plugged into it, both the controller and the camera. There are a couple of issues in doing this upgrade, in that the controller has got the RJ small connector inside it, which would have been nice if it was USB, but it's not. And the mount originally came with this interface lead, so you've got your serial port, 9-pin connector, and then the RJ connector that plugs into there. Now my PC is a Windows 10 and it doesn't have a serial port, so what we need to buy to make this work is a USB to RS232 converter, and the 9-pin plug on the other cable just simply plugs into there. I've got a diagram of the basic setup, which hopefully should help. The other thing to note, that when doing this upgrade, all the appliances need to be plugged in. So your camera needs to be plugged into auxiliary 1, hand controller into where it states hand controller, but you will also need a 12 volt DC power supply to power the whole unit, as the USB power is not enough to drive the control circuit for doing the programming. First thing we need to do prior to the upgrade is to head over to Java, which is java.com, download Java, as the firmware manager will not run unless you've got Java installed. Once we've got Java installed, head back over to your telescope. Mine's the CPC Deluxe HD, and if we scroll down the page and look for support and downloads and follow it down to software and firmware, we're looking for the Celestron Firmware Manager CFM software. If we click on that, it's going to give us a zip file. I've created a folder on my drive C, which is just called Telescope and CPC Deluxe. So I'm going to save that file into there, which will save a zip file into there. Now if I actually go into that folder, this is the folder I want, which is a CFM 29401. The other file is just for their astronomy software. So we double click on that. I'll use WinRNR and just extract it to whatever destination that you require. Some people put it to the desktop. I'm just going to leave it in this folder. So that's now done. So now if we go into that folder as we've extracted it, and this is the file that we're interested in, cfm.jar. Now if we run this for the first time, it brings up the firmware manager, and the first thing that happens, it starts downloading specific files for different telescopes and different operating systems. I think, I'm not too sure what it's doing, but it just downloads all these. You'll then come up with a warning saying that your telescope hasn't been detected because we haven't plugged it in yet. If we cancel that, and there's a list of devices here, and it won't show anything until we've actually plugged the telescope in. So the next thing to do now is to plug the 12 volt power supply into the telescope and plug the RS232 to BJ or RJ connector, into the telescope, and hopefully the PC should detect that telescope. So let's do that. The software is installed on the PC. Next thing to do is to plug in our 12 volt power supply, ensuring that the power is off. Effectively we don't want anything on the display there at all. And the last thing to do is to plug the USB lead in, so it should plug in the RJ connector into the base of there. So just get that plugged in. And that completes the setup. Now we've plugged in the RJ cable and the power supply, we can switch the power on the unit. It will just start its normal startup sequence, but then when we go over to the PC and we get to seek devices, the display should change. We've plugged the USB lead into the hand controller. We've turned the power on the unit. The next thing to do is to select Seek Devices, and if all is correct on the screen here, we're now showing that we have StarSense HC on serial link portal COM3, CPC Deluxe AZ on PJ CPC Alt, and StarSense accessory camera. So we have now found all the packages, and on the screen now we're showing we're ready to do the update. On the main controller it should state bootloader serial pass-through off. So as long as you're showing that on the main controller, we're now ready to press the button to do the firmware update. And simply we now just click update. Now this may take some time. There's 7 packages to install. I'm now on to 2 of 7, so I'll just speed this little section up until it completes. And now it's saying all your devices are up to date and all packages successfully downloaded. Now that the firmware has been uploaded, we can turn the unit off. We can unplug the cable and plug that back in, and now hopefully when we just reinitialize the system, everything should be okay. It's saying verifying packages, and it's telling us to wait. And we seem to be now ready to play again. So it really is that simple to do the firmware update.